A man lies awake at 2 a.m. He's done everything right. Built a career, stayed fit, and made friends who admire him. But in the quiet, when there is no one left to impress, a question slips through. Why does it still feel like I'm failing? Maybe you felt that too. You hit a goal once you thought would change everything, and the joy fades faster than you expected. The mind whispers, "Sure, that was good, but not quite enough." It's strange, isn't it? How you can check every box and still feel incomplete. How success, instead of ending the hunger, seems to sharpen it. This isn't just about insecurity or low confidence. It's something deeper, a pattern that repeats through centuries, from emperors to artists to everyday people. So why do we feel like this? Why does the human mind keep insisting it's falling short, even when life looks full from the outside? Here's the twist. It's not a personal flaw. It's the design of the mind itself. And once you see that, everything starts to make a different kind of sense. In this video, we're going to understand that feeling, because the sense of not enough isn't just a personal defect. It's a story we've all been taught to live inside, a script handed down quietly through culture, competition, and time. We will explore 3 ideas that might shift how you see yourself. First, how your sense of worth keeps moving like a mirage. Then, how comparison creates an invisible crowd inside your mind. And finally, how the ideal version of you both drives and torments you. Each idea reveals a layer of the same truth, that maybe the ache of not enough isn't something to escape, but something to understand. And to get there, we start with the first illusion, the one that moves every time you think you've caught it. There is a strange law of the mind. Whatever we achieve soon stops feeling special. Psychologists call it the hedonic treadmill, the way our emotional baseline resets after every success. You get the promotion, the new phone, the relationship. For a while, it feels like you've made it. Then, quietly, that feeling fades. The goalpost slides forward, just out of reach again. Stoic philosophers saw this long before psychology and gave it a name. Seneca once observed that wealth never satisfies because desire grows with abundance. It's like drinking salt water. Every sip only makes you thirstier. The mind keeps asking for just a little more. Not out of greed, but out of design. We're built to adapt, to keep moving. It's what kept our ancestors alive. But now, comfort surrounds us. And that old engine, which meant to push us towards survival, starts spinning on itself. Instead of hunting for food or safety, we chase validation, likes, perfection, and meaning. And each time we reach the summit, the horizon shifts. The mountain grows another peak. The moment we say, "I've arrived," the mind whispers, "Not yet." So if arriving never ends the chase, then what does? Let's follow that mirage a little further. There is a quiet tragedy in the way success often deepens our emptiness. You reach the place you dreamed of, and for a brief moment, it's dazzling. But soon, something unexpected happens. You start to feel hollow again. It's not because the victory was fake, it's because you've tied your sense of self to the chase. You've spent years sprinting towards something, believing that arrival would end the race. But when you cross the finish line, there is no applause, just silence. The Stoics warned about this illusion of arrival. They said peace doesn't come from getting what you want, it comes from wanting less. But that's hard to accept in a culture where progress is sacred. We're told to keep evolving, optimizing, becoming our best selves. Yet the more we strive to be enough, the more we reinforce the belief that we aren't. Here is the irony. The closer you get to enough, the further it runs. And the faster you chase it, the more convinced you become that it's real. The mirage keeps moving, and we keep walking, thirsty for meaning that keeps receding into the distance. But maybe the problem isn't the walk itself. Maybe it's who we are walking beside. Nowhere does that thirst grow faster than in comparison. Humans are social creatures. We've always looked to others to understand our place in the tribe. But the mind's mirror is warped. It doesn't compare fairly, it exaggerates. You see someone thriving, and your brain highlights every way you fall short. You scroll through endless faces and achievements, and it starts to feel like everyone else has found the secret you missed. Psychologists call this relative deprivation, the feeling of lacking something only because someone else seems to have it. Even if your life hasn't changed, your satisfaction shrinks in the shadow of another's highlight reel. There is a story of a monk who lived peacefully for decades in solitude. One day he visits the city. For the first time, he sees wealth, fashion, applause, and something inside him trembles. He returns to his monastery unsettled, realizing that comparison had awakened a hunger he never knew existed. That's the same hunger modern life feeds every second. We carry the city in our pockets, and every scroll whispers, "Look, someone else has done more, sooner and better." And if comparison once lived outside us, now it's moved in, which brings us to something even more haunting. Eventually, that comparison stops being about others. It becomes a voice inside us. We build an imaginary audience, a silent crowd watching our every move. Even when no one's around, we perform for their gaze. We measure every action, every flaw, against what that invisible crowd might think. It's a strange inheritance of the social mind. Once, being accepted meant survival. Now, it just means being seen. And so, we live under constant self-surveillance, adjusting, editing, curating ourselves for approval that never quite arrives. We become both the actor and the critic, trapped in our own theater of judgment. And the cruelest part is that the crowd isn't even real. It's just our reflection multiplied, our own doubts projected outward and fed back to us. No wonder enough feels unreachable. We're not trying to please the world anymore. We're trying to please the versions of ourselves that live inside everyone else's eyes. But that voice in the stands, the critic in your head, has an accomplice, and it's been there far longer. There is a quiet perfectionist that lives in most of us, an imagined version of who we should be, smarter, kinder, more productive, and more disciplined. It's the ideal self, the ghost we spend our lives chasing. The idea isn't new. Plato once asked of perfect forms, pure versions of everything that exists beyond the messy world we live in. Maybe that's where the modern self-ideal comes from, the belief that somewhere there is a flawless version of us, just out of reach. Psychology gives this idea a different name, but the same weight. We construct an inner image of perfection and then use it as a ruler to measure our real lives. Every mistake, every delay, every flaw becomes evidence that we are falling short of who we are supposed to be. There is a story of an artist who destroys his own masterpiece because it doesn't match the image in his mind. He can see what it should be, but never quite capture it. That's how many of us live, trapped between the real and the ideal, haunted by what might be possible if only we were enough. But here's the paradox. That same ghost we chase is the one that makes life meaningful. And that's where the pain turns beautiful. Maybe the ache isn't the enemy. Maybe the same longing that wounds us is also what gives us meaning. The poet longs to express beauty, but never fully can. The scientist wants to know the universe, but always reaches another question. The lover wants to be understood completely, yet mystery always remains. The feeling of not enough is the shadow side of aspiration. Without it, there would be no progress, no art, and no empathy. It's the spark that pulls civilization forward, even as it burns the individuals who carry it. We could call it sacred discontent, the restless energy that keeps life in motion. But that restlessness comes at a cost. The same drive that inspires us can also consume us, convincing us that peace will only come after perfection. And yet, even that is not the full story. Maybe because this longing, this sacred ache, isn't something to silence at all. Maybe it's something to live with and to listen to. But before we call it beautiful, we have to admit something difficult. It never really goes away. Of course, not everyone sees the feeling of not enough as an enemy. Some philosophies treat it as a rhythm, not failure. A pulse that rises and falls, reminding us that we are alive. The Buddhists speak of desire as both illusion and teacher. Stoics saw ambition as a tool, dangerous when unexamined, but powerful when directed. Even modern psychology admits that a touch of dissatisfaction fuels growth. The problem isn't the hunger itself. It's when we mistake the hunger for identity, when we believe that to exist is to constantly prove our worth. But perhaps enough isn't a permanent state. Maybe it's a moment, a breath between two waves of striving. We feel it briefly, then lose it again, the way a musician touches silence between notes. If that's true, then maybe our longing isn't something to cure. Maybe it's something to understand. And if that's where the truth lives, then maybe the next question isn't why we feel it. If we step back and look at everything we've explored, the moving target, the mirror of others, and the unreachable ideal, a pattern begins to appear. Each one points to the same truth. We are creatures cursed and blessed with awareness. We can imagine what's possible. We can dream of who we could become. And that imagination, as beautiful as it is, ensures we will always see the gap between here and there. The feeling of not enough isn't proof that something's wrong with you. It's proof that you can envision more. The same mind that creates wonder also creates discontent. Maybe enough was never meant to be a quantity, not a milestone to reach or a title to earn. Maybe it's a fleeting state, those rare moments when we drop the measuring stick and simply exist. All three ideas, adaptation, comparison, and aspiration, aren't enemies. They're forces, and like all forces, they can destroy or illuminate depending on how we hold them. So, what happens when you stop trying to hold them at all? Remember that man lying awake at 2 a.m.? The one who had everything he thought he needed yet still felt the quiet sting of failure? He hasn't found the answer. He's still staring at the ceiling. But something has changed. He stopped fighting the feeling. He started to see it for what it really is. Not a sign that he's broken, but a sign that he's alive. That invincible ache is simply the echo of awareness, the mind touching its own potential and realizing there is always more. Maybe that's the secret, to understand that the ache isn't punishment, it's a companion, a shadow that follows you not to taunt you, but to remind you that you're still becoming. The feeling of not enough might never vanish, but maybe it was never meant to. In the end, there is no cure for this longing, only recognition. The horizon keeps moving, the mirrors keep reflecting, and the ideal keeps whispering. And maybe that's okay, because in that tension between what we are and what we could be, life keeps unfolding. Every doubt, every ache, every quiet night of questioning becomes part of that unfolding. You were never meant to arrive. You were never meant to be perfect. You were never even meant to be enough. You were meant to be.